Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of the Team Daddy Weekly Recap. I am your host, Shapiro the Hero, aka Daddy Dreidels. With 2 games on Monday night, all 6 matchups were undecided after Sunday's action, leaving a lot to be determined in the final hours of Week 2. But when the dust settled, we had some teams stay unbeaten, some stay winless, and others even at their record with either that first win or that first loss. As always, I'll take you around the league looking at scores and top performers, and I'll show you how the standings look after 2 weeks of football. But as always, we start things off with this week's sponsor. This week's sponsor is Post-it Notes, the easiest way to remind yourself of the important things in life, like your girlfriend's birthday or starting your team captain. Post-it Notes make it easy to remember so you won't forget. Now, you might be wondering who would be dumb enough to pick a team captain and then leave him on the bench. Well, the answer comes in our first matchup of the week, the highly anticipated first Riotica Bowl of 2023. In this round, Josh got the win over Jed, 122.75 to 105.85. However, the real story is that both brothers left their captains on the bench, missing out on 26.1 points for Josh and almost 32 points for Jed. And by the way, those players cannot be picked as captains again, so good job, boys. Real proud of you there. The brothers will try to get it right next week when 2-0 Josh faces Big John and 0-2 Jed takes on Brett. Speaking of Brett, he almost had his first win of the year against Big John. However, as Big John reminded us all at 2 p.m. on Sunday, it's not even 4 o'clock yet. And he was right, as Big John used the late games to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat 191.95 to 156.65 over Brett. Leading the way for Big John was Captain Puka Nakua, who led all players in Week 2 with 51.65 points. John also got 32.1 points from Devontae Smith and 28 points each from T. Higgins and Brian Robinson. Brett was led by Jared Goff with 35.15 points, but falls to 0-2 to start the season. He will look to right the ship next week against winless Jed, while Big John will try to stay undefeated against 2-0 Josh. In another battle of the unbeatens, Cheese faced off against Kyle in what was arguably the week's most exciting matchup. And when the dust settled, Cheese took home his second win over Little Swans, 197.9 to 169.35. Cheese was led by Captain Mike Evans with 51.15 points, and he also got 31.25 points from Patrick Mahomes. Cheese actually had the highest scoring team of the week, earning $20 for that, plus another 10 for having the week's highest scoring kicker in Jake Moody with 14 points. Kyle was led by Justin Herbert and Captain DJ Moore, each of whom scored over 32 points apiece. Kyle will try to rebound and get back in the win column next week against George, while Cheese will try to start 3-0 when he faces off against Zach. Speaking of Zach, he falls to 0-2 to start the season after a tough loss to George, 161.4 to 149.25. George was led by Kirk Cousins with 46.2 points on Thursday night, and he also got 27.2 points from Saquon Barkley on Sunday. Zach was led by Keenan Allen with 36.1 points, and he also got 34.7 from Raheem Mostert. However, Zach does hold what might have been the most sought-after waiver pickup this week in Jerome Ford. Will Ford be able to repeat his success from Monday night? Zach sure hopes so, as he will try to get his first win of the season against undefeated Cheese, while 1-1 George will go for 2 in a row when he takes on Kyle. Speaking of 2 in a row, I started off the season 2-0 after beating PJ 166.05 to 114.6. I was led by Captain Nico Collins with 48.9 points, and I also got big gains from Jalen Hurts and James Cook. PJ was led by Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson, both of whom scored over 20 points. And to be fair to PJ, his captain got hurt and only scored him 4.35 points when he needed a comeback. However, PJ is now 0-2 to start the season and might start looking ahead to some potential trades. He will try to avoid going 0-3 when he takes on Swans next week, while I will try to stay unbeaten when I face off against Armenti. Speaking of Armenti, he fell hard against Swans this week, losing 177.45 to 115.85. Swans was led by Captain DeAndre Swift with 48.15 points, and he also got 32.4 points from Josh Allen. Even with a 0 from Darnell Mooney, Swans gets his first win of the season in resounding fashion. Armenti's team was led by the Cowboys' D, who scored 24 points as team captain. However, the big loss was Nick Chubb, who will be out for the season and possibly even longer than that after suffering a gruesome leg injury on Monday night. Armenti will try to get above 500 when he and I face off next week. while Swans will try to do the same against PJ. Here are the Team Daddy standings after week 2. At the top are the 4 unbeatens: Cheese, me, Big John, and Josh. Keep in mind, the tiebreaker is points scored, so setting the right lineup is of the utmost importance. After that, we have Little Swans, Big Swans, George, and Armenti, all of whom are 1-1. Finally, we have our winless teams: Zach, Brett, PJ, and Jed. But since it's only week 2, a lot can change over the next few weeks. Remember to keep setting those lineups and starting your captains. After all, you don't want to be called out like the Brothers Idiotica, right? Thank you as always for watching. This has been your Team Daddy Weekly Recap. I am Shapiro the Hero, and I will see you next time. L'chaim, motherfuckers!